What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the ShiftEQ.Podcast with Alan K. Today's episode is the 4 reasons why Asian men need to work out in order for them to have a chance in the dating market. But before I get into that, I have one announcement to make, and then also I want to talk a little bit about why I even decided to create this episode and the direction of this kind of content. So the first thing, the announcement, is that I have finally decided to compete in March 2023 in Las Vegas. For those of you guys who do not know, I began to compete in the OCB Natural Physique Competitions. That is a drug-free federation. You can do steroids, you can do TRT, you can do all those things that you want. But for me, I just choose not to, at least stay away from that for now while my natural testosterone levels are still healthy. With that being said, my very first competition, I placed in 5th. This last competition in May, I placed in 4th. And this next goal is to win outright. There's nothing more I'd love than to earn my pro card and then be a pro at the sport. And then from there, we're going to see where it goes. What I really want to do is an Ironman eventually. But, you know, I originally, when I started competing, I only wanted to do it once just to say I went up on stage. But that feeling of being up on stage and developing your body throughout that process, that transformation is fucking absolutely addicting. For those of you guys who don't know, I did not always have a nice physique. I used to teeter up and down with my weight, and I went up to as high as 210 pounds after the birth of my second daughter. And if you consider that I went up on stage at 135 pounds at like 6% body fat, mind you, it was like 10 years later, but experiencing that complete transformation and that contrast from constantly self-loathing, self-insecurity, self-everything, to getting up on stage and saying, fuck you, this is who I am. Holy shit, is that quite possibly one of the most gratifying feelings to break through in my entire fucking life. And here's the big amazing thing. When you start getting so stringent to your habits and your self-dedication to the point where you're watching every single calorie, you're hitting every single workout, you're sleeping, you're taking your nutrition, your supplements right, whole 9 yards, that kind of constant self-investment, that kind of initiative to make yourself a priority, prioritizes in other areas of your life. And I can honestly say that my finances, my personal relationships, and most importantly, the relationship with myself has never been this expounded upon in my entire life. And so I'd recommend anybody who is ever even curious about doing it to just fucking go for it. Sign up, get a coach, and push yourself to a limit that you have never understood that yourself to be. Now, to go into this. Why I decided to start creating lists to help Asian men be a fixture in the dating world. I've been consuming a lot of Asian American content as of late. And before I discuss into that, big shout out to channels like Chang Nation and Fung Bros who provide a face and a voice for issues that Asian American men go through that otherwise would be overlooked and would be constantly be ignored. Because the reality is there's 2 things that we are starting to find out real quickly about today's society. A, no one gives a fuck about men and men's health. And B, no one even more gives a fuck about Asian American men's health. Because the model minority, the marginalism and everything, it still exists. But because we're the model minority, we constantly get overlooked about issues. Because, well, you guys have enough money. You guys do well enough for yourself. But with that being said, that in that same lieu of rhetoric, narrative, and stereotypes is that Asian men are also desexualized, betatized, whole 9 yards. And with the content that I'm seeing, instead of providing a way to break out of these labels, all this content is constantly reflecting on the things that we can't do and how we need more representation. Then all the other Asian men are going to get a chance. And we need this in order for us to do that. And look, you can limit yourself. You can label yourself and blame everybody else for the reasons of why you can't go after what you want. But you can also take the initiative upon your hands to develop who you are beyond a label. You know, sure, like, look, I'm Asian American, obviously. I'm short, I'm Asian, and I've had a pretty exceptional dating life. Now, I would attribute some of those things to having the confidence that comes with working out, having the confidence that has with having nice tattoos and developing that. Maybe those are the things that have me started, but I'll tell you, when people know who I am, they know that I'm Alan. They don't know as this Asian guy. They don't know this Asian whatever. Sure, I might be known as that Asian guy with tattoos or so, but people that know me and understand that I am above a label. And when you meet me, you will realize that I do not allow myself to get defined by as a label. Because when you know who you are and you start developing upon that and you start going after the things that you want, you realize the things that you don't tolerate anymore. And a lot of my earlier years were spent taking it as all these Asian comments, taking the fact that I was, and taking and accepting the fact that I was not desired on the sexual market. Took and accepted the fact that I am not like the other men. And a lot of those rhetorics and narratives kept me down for the longest until I finally got to the point where I'm like, wait, fuck this. I only have one life to live. And I want to create that into how I fucking want beyond labels. And I'll tell you, a lot of that initiative does come with a strong energy if you can't hear it. And I can definitely tell, and I know that there's a lot of Asian men that are constantly upset about being picked on and being marginalized, being talked down to, and being told that they're limited to what they can do based on what they are, even though that's not who they are at all. Take that energy and make yourself something out of it. We have such an opportunity to create ourselves, but people spend more time limiting themselves based off of defining who they are, based off of what they are. And I'll tell you, it is way more better. Way more better. It's way more liberating, way more fulfilling to define who you are and invest into that than it is to constantly hold yourself back because of a label that someone put onto you. So, with that being said, this is a list of 4 things as to why Asian men need to work out. Now, mind you, here's another thing. Here's a really good one. Regardless of how you develop yourself, regardless of all these tips, tricks, whatever you want to call them, suggestions, recommendations to improve yourself as a person, regardless of what you develop yourself into, if you don't develop who you are, if you constantly do these things to be validated by everybody else, if your sole reason is just to attach to someone else and not invest into you, then all of this is going to fail. You might be more physically in shape. You might start getting more attentions and more DMs. But if the person inside is constantly seeking that validation from an external source instead of yourself, it will be felt. It will be known. And before you even get in the act of being able to date or getting a number beyond that, you have to figure out who you are, because otherwise that will just fail in its entirety. So again, this is just to get your foot in the door, understanding that how attention works with regards to people, and specifically how these things can benefit Asian men to get your foot into the door about attention. Again, I can't tell you when you should text them. I'm not going to tell you you should open this door with your left hand and then you should slap her ass with the right and then you should compliment her 4 seconds later. When you start getting into that shit and you start becoming a robot, you're not authentic. You're not who you are, and people sense that, let alone yourself. So if you want to put yourself into an anxious ball, program yourself into thinking those are the things that's going to make people attracted to you. The only thing that actually draws people and keeps them there is just being your authentic self. And if they don't like that in general, then they weren't meant for you, fam. It's okay. Move on. It's way better to be hated for who you are than to be loved for who you're not. Trust. So, here are the 4 reasons why Asian American men need to work out in order for them to have a chance in the dating market. So number 1, the very first reason why Asian men need to work out is contrast. So one of the more appealing things about attention and how we derive it is seeing things as a plain surface, And then all of a sudden seeing something that's obscure, that sticks out. So like, let's say you are looking at a white wall and all of a sudden you see this black square. Regardless of where that black square may or may not be, like these ones right here, right? You will notice it more than anything else. The same thing happens when we see people. When you start observing people, it is in our innate survival mechanism to start stereotyping things so that we know that it's safe. But let's say we're in a social setting and all of a sudden we see, oh, Asian, buff Asian. Well, buff Asian, what the fuck? A lot of my dating experience, a lot of what got me initially into the door of talking about things is the fact, again, that I work out, that I have tattoos, things like that. When you start doing things that go against the grain of what may or may not be feminine, and you present yourself in a masculine frame, it draws attention to you. Now, again, just because you get attention, it doesn't mean you're going to get laid or you're going to get a number or you're going to go on a date. It just means it provides you an opportunity to present who you are. But by working out, by providing that contrast, you provide attention for yourself and provide yourself an opportunity to go out and attract someone. Which brings me to my second, number 2 reason as to why Asian men need to be working out. It's called the halo effect. So what happens when people find other people attractive is that they naturally, subconsciously start thinking that their other attributes about them are also good, confident, well-mannered, well-dressed, whole 9 yards. So when we start working out and we start becoming more confident, and then we start, all of a sudden he's the buff Asian, all of a sudden he's the fit, aesthetic looking Asian, something that we're not used to, because you're an exception of the rhetoric that some people are used to, you naturally get attributed to more attributes, more good attributes. Well, he's already smart, right? Because he's Asian. Oh, he's probably got money and things like that because he's Asian. And then, wait, he's buff too, blah, blah, blah. All of these other attributes will start going, and it's a pyramid effect of how they're just like, oh, wow, he's good at this. He's probably good at that. He's probably good at this, probably good at that. It's just an effect that people have. And that's exactly why when you look at social media, when you look at good-looking people and they have this shirtless selfie with the quote from Gandhi, which has nothing to do with the shirtless selfie, but because, oh, he's good-looking. Oh, wow, that's like so humanitarian of him to post that quote. It's just what we do naturally. And by working out, dressing better to tailor your body and presenting yourself with that kind of confidence, you benefit from the halo effect, aka you get attributed to more good things to you based off of your look. Number 3, the number 3 reason, and this is kind of a funnier reason, but it's true. The number 3 reason why Asian men need to work out is because it makes your voice deeper. So the stereotype, and then if I were to be real honest, what I observe amongst a lot of Asian people is our voices are a little higher pitched, whether that's our language, whether that's our lingo, the way our diaphragm is built, whatever it is. By working out, by strengthening your cardiac muscles, by putting more air through your lungs, you are naturally making your voice deeper. And women, females, or people of feminine energies are more attracted to deeper voices because it has stereotypically and traditionally mean a bigger frame. Now, obviously, look at me, that doesn't always happen, but that innate attraction based off of that quality and that characteristic, it still exists. And if you view yourself as someone with a higher pitched voice, then it might be better to work out because your voice can get deeper. So bad, guys. Sorry that these voices, I almost sound like Bullwinkle right there. Hey, yo, Ricky. Hey, yo, Bullwinkle. I digress. All right. And the number 4 reason why Asian men need to work out is because of relativity. So the average grip strength in men back in 1985 was 117 PSI. Today, that number is at 98 PSI. If you also consider the fact that the average level of testosterone in men has declined 1% every year since the 1980s, and with the fact that obesity has now doubled over the last 30 years to make up 40% of the population, which means now the overweight and the obese population makes up 70% of all men. There is no other time than now to work out, build a masculine frame, and create yourself as an exception just by that alone. By working out, by creating a physique, you're already in the top 30% of men, let alone the fact that you are absolutely raising your testosterone levels and make making efficient use of them. Testosterone has been linked to so many levels of man, but more often than not, it leads to production, purpose, confidence, and the lack thereof. Testosterone leads into a loss of purpose, a lack of self-initiative, aka it leads to depression. And more right now than anything that's happening, men are getting more and more depressed, whether it's not having sex, whether it's not lifting or not taking care of those, whatever it may or may not be. There's not more of a time than now to create yourself into a masculine figure beyond race. Because let's say even though, let's say Asians were genetically less able to create more testosterone and create more masculine features, it's like God put in a cheat code to make everybody 20% worse so that we can improve ourselves and level the playing field. At least that's how I would like to look at it. So work out, create yourself into an exception. Look at the 4 reasons that I just listed and let me know. What do you guys think about this list? Do you agree with this? Do you disagree with this? Is there more? Oh my God, there's a lot more reasons why we should be working out, let alone why Asian men should be working out. But we're going to talk about that more. There's probably going to be more sequels to this episode, let alone the fact that we're going to start talking about more often, or we're going to start talking about more things as it pertains to making Asian American men relevant in the pop culture world or in the world in general, for us to be a desired label so that we can all expound and be better. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. If you guys like it, also follow me on Instagram, ShiftEQ.Podcast. Email me, ShiftEQLLC@gmail.com. And for all of those who continue to follow, continue to support, thank you so much. I really love you all. And until next time, deuce.